So the last time I saw Manolis was probably 2005. This is actually the first time I've seen Manolis and probably have been back to Boston and MIT since. And the last time we met, I was a graduate student at Harvard. I was in the lab of Wally Gilbert, for those of you that are familiar with the Gilbert-Maxim technique, and we met at a biology conference of all places. But I'll say this about Manoli, and this is why I grew to love this man, is because at this conference, if you recall, there were wonderful VIPs, Nobel laureates abounding, glorious formal dinner that, if any of you have been to a conference at Cold Spring Harbor, they usually fetch you for one night with a nice lobster dinner. Manoli's wonderful idea was, hey, let's get out of here. Hey, you wanna bugger off, you wanna fuck off and go to New York, where I lived at the time. So we drove down in his car, trying to eat some lobster on the way, and ended up at a roller derby. That to me was the essence.
Several keynote speakers drove to roller derby.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I think we emptied the the banquet of most of the keynote speakers. It was an amazing evening.
Do you know what roller derby is?
Yes.
Right up.
But that to me was the essence of Manoli. So since then, thank you for embodying what I see as the archetype of a successful scientist. And that bet, I'm still holding you to it. I know you're at 42, but we're getting close to it. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll talk to you today about exploration and why I think it's so vital for what we consider to be meaning in life, and how it has very little to do with what we tend to think of as exploration. I'll start with explaining how I got here. I actually flew over here from Australia. Yay. So forgive me if I'm a little vacuous. I've lost most of my words on the long journey over. So I began thinking I was going to end up a tenured professor in science. Ended up losing control of my body. Ending up at home, being taken care of in my 30s by my parents. Couldn't leave the house because I was on extreme therapeutics. And it was a moment of disconnect, of losing a sense of self, and not being able to rely on the very thing that I thought constituted myself. So for a period of time, the exploration turned internal, of trying to reconnect and rediscover what it meant to be a thing in this world. And the impulse to keep exploring continued. So as my body began to heal and I started to reconnect with it, likewise I started to reconnect with my sense of creativity. And in that, a sense of exploration and inspiration. So now you find me here as an analog astronaut. I'm now in Australia, now describing myself as an extremophile rather than artist, scientist, explorer, whatever. I'm not an extremophile, but focused on the somatic, or the individual, the bodily experience of exploration. And this is why I think I would argue that exploration in and of itself is not what's important. Learning is not what's important. It's the only way that we can derive pleasure in life. It's through trying to describe what is happening between the cells in our bodies, between the cells between ourselves and each other. I'll focus on Cecile, nice to meet you finally. And why I would argue that for all of our desire to go off this earth, we need to reconnect with each other and it. We need to reconnect with a sense of what it means to be a self, or a bag full of cells, and what it means to have a desire to explore. What are we exploring? What are we seeking? And why do we need to have an embodied self that moves beyond this planet? So that, to me, Manolis, is the essence of exploration.
Thank you.
Woo!